Hello there. I'm Radagast, and I'm joined with my new friend and new show co-host, Gio. And this is Cosmic Emporium. Hi, Gio.
Hello there, Rad. This is really a wonderful time to initiate this today. I think this is a good time to begin this conversation, and I hope we can have many more. But let's get started here, and let's see where this leads us today.
Well, I guess to me, a big topic would be the inauguration of Donald Trump. Somebody has certainly thrown, as they say, a cat in amongst the pigeons. And, there is, I guess there's great joy amongst a certain population, maybe almost half the population of the United States, and then a certain lack of joy on another population of the United States. And as I speak I went to a gathering yesterday from, the kind of the artsy type people, and I played music, and I got to speak to some people. And the interesting thing that I was speaking is, a lot of people I was with are not at all happy with the election of Donald Trump. And so they want to engage me in conversation. And I just asked them, did you listen to the inauguration speech of Donald Trump? It wasn't very long. And nobody there had listened to it. They go, I can't listen to him. I can't listen to him. And I just said, how are we going to discuss the merits of what he's saying if nobody's listening to him? And then when you come with whatever talking point you have, you've gotten these broken up sound bites through the mainstream media, which is clearly at war with the president-elect, and then think that we can have a meaningful dialogue of what the man is saying when we haven't listened to the same source material.
Yes, I would have been one of those types there that probably would have agreed with the others. But saying that, there's some interesting things even going on, on the forum that we're both members of right now, with the liberal conservative bent. And I do believe that what's happening here is much more deeper than that. I don't really see myself as a liberal, and I don't see Donald necessarily as a conservative. What I'm sensing is that there is something major going on, and we need to pay attention to it, especially now in the beginning, this week starting with his administration, to listen closely and not react so much by what he's saying, but what he does.
Yes.
And he's made some great, promises to make some major change. And you and I have discussed this before, so it's best that we don't let our emotions take over. I do understand those that don't like listening to him. I sometimes turn, the visuals off myself, or prefer to go to even read a transcript.
Yeah.
But really, because most of the stuff that we're getting is been edited, if not, watered down to some degree and chopped up by the news media, whether it be alternative or MSN. So it's important for us now to really just be observers, and we don't have to be involved with it. We don't have to own it. We just have to observe and allow. Time will tell, as I already said earlier today. Time will tell what's going to be with him. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to go off his message. It means he's going to have some stuff thrown at him. Most definitely, not just by the Democrats, but also the Republicans up on the Hill.
Well, I think that's one of the things that if we're going to really follow this with the right kind of vision, we have to realize that Democrats and Republicans are not applicable here. We have a globalist world agenda that both parties are a part of, not to a man and woman, but they're part of it. And so really what we're seeing now is the people coming out of the woodwork and showing whether or not they're globalists or people who would put the citizens that they were elected by to serve first. And that's real. That is the real dividing line. This is not a Republican and Democratic thing. This is an American versus the globalists. And that's the only proper lens to look at this battle that is unfolding, and it is a battle.
Yes, and it will be a battle, no question about that. It's going to get bloody. I think we're going to see some real crises coming in, and not only just within the country, but also internationally, because reading observations by world leaders of what they're seeing and what they're feeling, in Europe particularly, but also China and Russia. There's a big unknown. I think even we're going to see a wedge being created for the time being between Putin and Trump until they meet. I think after they meet, things will smooth over. I really do believe that. I don't worry about the international scene as much as I do internally, because unless we clean up some stuff, within the country, we're not going to exist as a nation, to do any bidding. So, saying that, there's also the concern of China, which you and I both have. So,
yes, and I thought what was really interesting was at the Davos meeting, and if you don't know that Davos is the public face of the globalists. Bilderberg is the hidden meeting.
Right.
China was the darling. I mean, really, the globalists are really quite nervous. They are freaked out by the kind of nationalist things they're seeing represented in Brexit. Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, either Fillon or Marine Le Pen in France.
Yes.
What Viktor Orban has been saying out of Hungary now for over a year. There is a movement that is anti-globalist. It's anti-corporate takeover of sovereign countries. And I just thought it was really funny that it was, let's call it authoritarian. I mean, look, the Chinese government still has a communist party.
Right.
They've opened up a certain amount of capitalism, but even if you study the Chinese historically, they're an authoritarian country. For me, that is only concerns the Chinese. I think it's really none of my business. I can certainly have an opinion on what I think of that kind of country. Basically, and the only opinion that really matters, I don't think I'd like to live there. But for us to kind of stand out and go, we're representing for the Chinese people can represent themselves. And who knows? I mean, again, it's a different culture. Certain people it seems like Russians actually like their leaders a little more Tsar-like. I'm not saying they want to return to having a Tsar again, but there seems to be something in the character where they kind of like that. And I know one thing: almost anybody who really cares about their country certainly likes somebody who appears to be able to get things done.
Right.
And but I mean, I just really thought it was funny that of China being the darling of the NW of the New World Order. Because they kind of made very soothing sounds. I personally think that in many ways, the Chinese are looking, used to be, a very high civilization a long time ago, and they got marginalized. They want their place on the world stage again. I understand that. They want their propers. I understand that. And so I think what it was is that by being a star at Davos, I thought it was good for the Chinese psyche. And, but I think in many ways they're like, hey, look, we're glad to take all this good energy right now. And, because basically they're just looking to do business. They want to be the merchants of the world like they once were. And so I think there's a certain amount of, they'll take the role as it's being perceived. Oh, Chinese will be our saviors. They'll hold globalism together. But I have a feeling the Chinese have their own path forward, and they have already spoken of a multipolar world. And the people at Davos, in their need for a safe space, I think heard things that the Chinese really weren't saying.
Yes. They are the ones with the wallet now. They have the money. And of course, everyone's going to follow suit. And I understand that. And that's okay with me, because I think you and I both agree that it's best for us to, in the United States, to retreat back within, and not to be isolationist, but to retreat and rethink our position, if not our place. And as you and I have said to each other, we believe that there's no problems with three major powers, with even some, other ones, if you want to involve them. Anyone that's got a nuclear weapon, in my opinion, is a major power.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about economies here, and that would include, of course, Brazil, India, and
And Pakistan.
Pakistan, but also, I want to also include all the minor economic markets of Asia, and of course we can't exclude Europe, because Europe in itself is a powerhouse of commerce. So I mean, things are moving along very well, and from my point of view, I just don't want to see anything flare up that's going to cause the globalists to have a reason to ignite an incident that could really off track some of the change that needs to take place in the United States. But we'll see. We'll see. And it's best, as I said, to be an observer and not to get too high strung about all this. What happened this past weekend, of course, across the country, even in my own town here in Spokane, there was, thousands of 7,000 people marching, down the street from me, and I think that's okay. I think that's a reaction of frustration, and also of concern of losing things that some people feel they gained through the Obama administration. What I see is the healthcare for the underclasses, those that don't have any ways and means, that are government dependent. I think a lot of those people are scared of losing that. I think most importantly also is the rights of women to control their bodies, which I saw as a major force in those marches, which I totally agree with. Since the 70s and the late 60s of the early women movement, I've always felt I have no right to really be voicing my opinion, above the ladies. It's their bodies.
I agree totally with that. And from what I'm seeing, the big thing that happened with it, I think an executive order, is that there would no longer be taxpayer funding, at least starting, no more taxpayer funding for some of these I guess these I guess Planned Parenthood type things in other countries,
Right.
for abortions, not for health care. But I mean, from what I understand, he's kind of separated abortion from health care.
Yes.
And that the taxpayers would no longer be paying for these abortions. And I don't see that as taking away rights, taking away funding, taking away government funding of something is not taking away the right to use a service.
Correct.
And that needs to be part that there's a real difference between that. And so I just want people to not conflate one with the other.
Yes, and what's most important here is the states picking up that slack, because it is a state's issue, and whether you live in Mississippi or Washington State, where I live, it's going to vary. The effects of this, but I feel that it should happen this way, because we need to give. I shouldn't say give, but it should go back to the states. The states are really the force behind the United States individually, and combined. Let's say that it's going to be a little dicey for those living in some states that are red, that do not believe in abortion, and this is the point that I most important item that I am concerned about is the protection of sexual behavior through giving out free, items.
Contraception.
Yes, contraception is a very important thing, and right now the disease level is way down because of this.
Mhm.
Through Planned Parenthood and other state options that are available to participants that want to partake, and so it's going to be a little dicey there. But I think the states can come forward, and as you and I have discussed, that if someone really needs an abortion, they might have to go across a border, maybe in the future to do this. Or, but I do believe that there's individual landowners that might fund some of this, that might help some of these people do, receive these cares if needed to fill the gap.
Well, to me, when it happens at the state level, then anybody who's in a state that doesn't like the way they go there, then it's time to get politically active. And if you
Or
have
move,
the
or move.
popular support for where you're coming from, you can make it happen. If you don't have popular support, well, then you might be living in the wrong state. I
Yes.
mean, there are some real decisions to be made here, but I really see it as a proper expression of the will of any given local population. And to me, that's sovereignty starts local.
Right. I totally agree. And looking at that also from the point of view, when we will go and I'll smooth right into the energy thing, with Donald wanting to revive the coal industry. I was born in West Virginia, as you know, and my father's family were coal miners, and I had a couple relatives die of black lung and everything. Saying that, coal mining, revived itself back in the 70s and into the 80s with strip mining and whatnot. My dad even had some work there with the unions, and as far as coming in and cleaning up the aftermath and replanting and repurposing the soils. But it's not going to go back to that. Coal is out. Hydrogen is in. Other types of technologies are gonna come in. Even China right now is withdrawing from their coal producing, or I should say, coal power sources. Plants.
But they also did their coal plants on the cheap. I mean, there is really good efficient burning, and then the scrubbers that really allow for nothing other than CO2 to come out. I mean, where
Yeah,
in other words,
yes.
the pollution, the pollution that creates diseases and lung problems, there is no need. That's only a government doing it on the cheap.
Yes.
You can burn coal. For me, the biggest, because coal can be burned cleanly. Again, I don't have the CO2 issue on my board of concerns, but to me, the biggest problem is, how do we source the coal? To me, cutting off the tops of mountains is, first of all, is ecologically and aesthetically ugly. Very often the runoff from this kind of mining completely poisons the water. We cannot, I mean, there has to be a focus. I'm not for the EPA. The EPA has been appropriated, but we have a public consciousness that, to me, can be made without regulations. It's like, we want our water clean. So that means if you're going to frack and destroy the aquifers, that is not a doable thing. Water is life, and we can't trade water for energy. There are alternative sources of energy. Anything, again, we have to be really stringent about. We want clean air and we want clean water. And anything that contributes to dirty air or contributes to dirty water is a non-starter.
Yes, and that's the most important thing that we can both agree to, and others as well, no matter if it's in the United States, Canada, or Europe, or wherever. That is exactly right, and right on. What I see, though, Donald doing, if I may, is maybe in these regions, the Rust Belt, as we call it here in the United States, revitalizing these areas by maybe, and they're talking about, a 15% corporative tax cut, down to 15%, which is much more realistic and would also make it much more applicable for these corporations to come back and start investing again within the United States, as well as still keeping their investments internationally to keep their markets open. But saying that we need to invent or revitalize a way of giving an incentive to going to these non-traditional ways of energy. And I'm speaking also of even though I know there's been some breakthroughs in nuclear reactors, plans and models, I still am a little weary of nuclear energy. I think that what we should do there is start looking at ways of downsizing that and converting over to more natural ways with wind.
Well, apparently
So,
Russia a couple of months ago started their first experimental, I guess it's called a thorium salt reactor or something.
yes, that's one of them.
And what they use for fuel is what we now call nuclear waste.
Yes, exactly.
And so there is a technology that actually like in other words, we still haven't figured out whether we're going to put our waste in Yucca Mountain, and some of the local people don't want it in Yucca Mountain. Why? We don't have to worry about burying anymore. All of that garbage is now fuel for these new types of reactors.
True, but it's down the road. It's not exactly like going to happen in the next 5 years, maybe not even 10
Well,
or
I think
20.
it's more of political will. I mean, if Russia has already started one up and apparently it's running just fine, it seems to me that the technology is there. It's just a matter of whether or not whose toes do you step on to bring this new technology in.
Right, and the politics involved with each state, because in the United States, it's a lot harder to get things done than it is in Russia, obviously, because of our local governments and state and local governments. But saying that, I have no problems with that, and I think it's any alternative that's on new tech, new ideas is okay, and we should go in every direction that's affordable to make a conversion over to new types of ways of doing things. So that's okay with me.
Well,
Um,
one of the dog whistles that was in the Trump inauguration was in the same sentence or paragraph. He spoke about, I wish I had the transcript in front of me. I closed down my browser so I wouldn't get interrupted. But it was about the new technologies for space exploration. And in the same sentence, space exploration, the eradication of disease, new ways of producing energy. It really seemed like he was speaking of at least let's call it advanced technology disclosure. I mean, there was so much in his inauguration speech, even though it was only 15 minutes long. But again, it was kind of as I mentioned, there was he referred to the do-nothings in Congress. And of course, it seemed like the mainstream media meant that he was calling Congress do-nothings. That's not how I construe a sentence like that. That I see that sentence as speaking about the do-nothings that are in Congress. In other words, that within Congress, there are do-nothing people, and that's who he was talking to. And he wasn't calling Congress do-nothings. He didn't say Congress is a bunch of do-nothings. He said the do-nothings in Congress. And to me, that's a very specific group within a larger group.
Exactly. And as we've talked about in the past of his plans for the first 100 days, and, with the ideas of limiting term limits for Congress, as well as, job freezings for federal employees and what I would hope to be also contract workers, which I consider the fourth part of government, so to speak. There's a whole group of federal employees that are contractors that's huge. It's just outlandish. But yes, he's got a lot of good points. Unfortunately, he likes to throw in quibs in between his points, and that's where the sound bites come from, and that's where people focus their attention upon. That's why I said it's best to read his stuff before you listen to it, because it's only going to distract you. I don't know what that's about. I think that's a personality thing. Matter of fact, I know it is. I even have hints of it in my own ways of conversing with people. So I do understand it, but it's best maybe to unplug from, the visuals and sometimes the audios of Donald to hear what he's saying.
One of the most,
Go ahead.
one of the things I find interesting is like, look, there's a lot of people that I, listen to for what I consider to be reasoned opinion on the topics of the day. People like Randy Maugens, people like Max Egan, Lionel Nation, Molyneux, Sargon of Akkad, Satsu 2 Cents. I mean, everywhere from like the ones who have 500,000 followers to a couple of thousand followers. Mm-hmm. To a person, even if they're not pro-Trump, they're this is better than the choice we had. And also, if he follows through on the things he's saying, I think I'm going to like this. So I just find it very interesting. And most of these people would consider themselves liberals. They really would. So I just find it very interesting that that the thoughtful people, the people who have taken upon themselves to look at things and then present it to an audience, almost to a person, are all at the very least, let's give this guy a chance.
Well, what you're picking up on and what you yourself have bestowed upon me is your own feelings about this, and I'm open to it because even as James Gillian has
I meant to mention his name,
has told me, what if you all are sensing this stuff, I'm not. I have to be honest. I'm not getting it from the the esoteric. I'm not getting it from the observers. I'm not getting it from anywhere. What I am getting more is my intuitive take on all this, and I'm very open to it. But if my friends and people that I admire and follow are feeling this, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt more than I have even Trump, because if they're feeling it, then I'm okay with it. I don't even want to say, well, it's on you if it isn't, because that's childish. But I'm not feeling it like that. But I do believe we need to start and try something different, and it has to be radical. And he's the only player right now that offers this in the whole world, for that matter. I think through Trump, good things can come from Putin as well as China. I think we got to get away from this war bent that we're on, and not saying that it's all American, all the United States. I mean, there's a lot of people that are willing to go to war, in China as well as Russia, if the opportunity opens up. And of course, we won't even get into the Middle East here today, because that's another can of worms that we need to discuss in the future. But I'm optimistic to the point where at least something's gonna rattle the cage now. And as far as all the other things that people worry about losing and getting, well, we lost that stuff a long time ago here in America. So we can only go up as far as I see it. But
yeah, I mean, I just really, to me, like when I hear the protesters, the ones that the ones who need safe spaces and poured out of the colleges and complete
yes.
Upset. What they don't realize is the very education they're getting is really part of what I can only call cultural Marxism, and is part of the New World Order indoctrination program. And so I really, I certainly feel some kindness towards people who I consider to be really out of touch, because I know the programming they've been through. And so if they are a product of the programming, I don't expect them to respond particularly well to messages that are counter through that programming. In many ways, for now, they've kind of been absorbed into this, to me, AI type mind virus, world government meme. And so they're kind of hearing with the ears of the globalists. And so, and since Donald Trump, to me, is putting out, the noises he's making are very anti-globalist. I can just see how certain of the, the notes that he's playing sound quite dissonant in certain to certain ears. And
Yes.
I just really feel a lot of these ears are very indoctrinated, because they now have this taste for a man, that the person the people singing their song is the mainstream media. So here's this whole population that's going to a media that is untrustworthy, to at least far as telling a story correctly, and clearly has a globalist agenda. And this is where they're getting all their talking points, and it's really muddying the waters for, to me, a passionate but informed dialogue between people who have different feelings about what happened here.
Right. Social media obviously is taking advantage of this. Those in the globalist organizations, corporations, are taking full advantage of what I call the Indigo network.
Mm-hmm.
The young ones, those born, I would say, and I don't like putting, necessarily braces around this, but let's say those born in the mid 70s up to the 90s, they're taking advantage of the hive, because a lot of the young people do think alike. The social network, the devices, only proves this, even though many adults, including myself, use these devices to communicate. As a ways and means of operating now. They're much more plugged in, and they're plugged into each other, and they don't like dishonesty. So they're going to be watching this very carefully. And this gets into types, like that's why they had such a following with the Bernie Sanders group, because they want truth. And Bernie is speaking truth in many ways to the young people, as well as the liberal bent, so to speak. So you're going to have a reactionary response from them until they start seeing results. So I don't see that changing in the next couple of years, unless something major happens to the consciousness. Saying that, I getting to Trump, I see Trump as as the word I'm using now, catalyst to a change. I don't see him being around long, meaning over his 4-year term. I don't see him going for re-election. This is my prognosis of it. I see others coming out of this. I do think that enough people have been frightened by this election that you're going to see a surge of new candidacy in Congress coming up. I think we're going to see a lot of young names new names of individuals we've never heard before. And that's where the change will happen, probably within the next.
I'll tell you who I think the superstar amongst the Democrats is. Tulsi Gabbard.
You might have to enlighten me there. The name.
Tulsi Gabbard is a congresswoman, I believe, or senator. I forget which one she is, from Hawaii. She's of Samoan heritage, and she's also she served in the armed forces. And she's the one who introduced the bill, No More Funding of Terrorists.
Interesting.
Her take on the Syria war is much more in line with Vanessa Beeley and that other Canadian woman. About, again, this was a sovereign people being besieged by all of these other mercenaries from like 80 different countries, if not more. Mm-hmm. She has she has the historically correct take on what happened in Syria and who was responsible. And also she's a woman. So for me, if the Democrats on the next cycle were looking to quote unquote break the glass ceiling of a woman for president, I'm going to tell you, this Tulsi Gabbard to me is a strong contender. And as I told somebody yesterday, if the DNC hadn't been so crooked and basically sat on Bernie Sanders, they screwed Bernie Sanders. So in many ways, what the young people wanted, the old guard DNC globalists said, no, Hillary's the person.
Mhm.
Had they allowed the real voice of the people to have been heard and allowed Bernie his proper place, and probably he would have been the Democratic nominee, I have a feeling we wouldn't be dealing with a Donald Trump right now.
Very true. And I do see, if not by Bernie's example, a new party, so to speak, a Democratic Party, or maybe even a different name. We might see a new party emerge from all this. The DNC might become minor, depending on the money and how it's distributed by influence. But saying that, yeah, I see a new party emerging. I don't even want to call it Democrat. I think, as far as even the Republican Party is concerned, it's not really a very strong party per
I'm
se.
a political atheist. For me,
Yes.
again, it's to me like Republican or Democrats kind of say Christian or Muslim or Christian or Jew. It's like
Yes.
it's nothing more than divisive. A good idea for our country is a good idea, and
Yes.
that's how I really want to come from. Where, because to me, these two parties is like having two heads on one body, and they're arguing. They're bopping each other over the head like it's some kind of comic two-headed monster. Thing where no, I'm going to do this. No, you're stupid, and you get nowhere.
And
Um,
it was designed that way. Yes.
and
Yes.
we really need good ideas, and good ideas transcend politics. To me, politics works at a very local level where you can kind of bump into the local decisions. But to me, on a national level, politics is what I consider schizophrenia, and that's a psychosis. And I'm not for some psychotic aspect of government. And to me, the two-party system is schizophrenic.
And rightfully so. It is. It is. It's not good. I don't know how to say that. I just want to see it go away. I want to see this two-party system go away the way it is. I
Mm-hmm.
want to see new groups coming up, and I think we will. Because our generation obviously is fading. We're going to be having dementia coming up soon.
Oh.
So I think it's going to be a young person's world in the next 10 years, very quickly, and maybe even faster than I'm even thinking. That's fine with me. I really am, because I don't think, even though there's a lot of good people, in the baby boom generation, I think it's time for the young to take over.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this is a global thing, and it will, because there's people in Asia, young people in India, they have no idea what we're even speaking of when we talk, retro and speak of, because they weren't educated or indoctrinated into these things like you and I were. So, the future is for the young, and that's where I'm hoping where that March Saturday will take take plant, especially globally, because there was marches everywhere. That these young people will be inspired to get involved, to make the change, and that's really important, because it's good for us in America, but in Paris, London. Um, I'm trying to think of other cities, but I know there was down in Australia, and places. I see this is where it's going to have to happen. So anyway, what do you say we wrap this up, and
Yeah.
and we can do this again soon, and we'll continue the dialogue, and you know add a little insight to
Yes.
what we're feeling.
Okay. Well, Giovanni, I just since this is the first time you being kind of introduced to, at least initially, my audience, if this takes off, we will certainly start our own YouTube channel for Cosmic Emporium.
Yes.
And the reason why you happen to be using an avatar of a friar is because can we tell people that you were a friar for a while?
Yes. Yes. I was a Franciscan, and I've been a lot of things, but I was a Franciscan. Believe it or not, I was a monk, and I had a medical vocation, and it really changed my life. And I'm very, the job that I had prior to that, I worked in a corporate world. I worked as a manager for Corning, of all places. And prior to that, I was a paramedic in my younger life. I was injured in a helicopter accident and broke my back. But, I've had, many, many opportunities and chances to experience my life. And express my life. So I'm, I am what I am. I'm not on camera, as you know. My anonymity is very important to me. I don't even use my family name, over social media. Not that people don't know who I am. I put myself out there before and shown my picture and everything. And I have to qualify that I do have, government contacts with my family, and both my brother and sister are retired intelligence people, and so I do have connections there where I consider my brother and sister white hats. So I have some insights that other people might not get, especially from Washington. Both family members still live in Washington area. But saying that, yes, I consider myself a and you used the word once, a holy person. I'm a whole person. I'm a whole person.
Yes. Well, I really find it, kind of, because I could, I happen to be an ordained minister as well.
That's right.
Consider myself a holy man at the end of the day. I'd like to spell holy with a W. And also what I liked about our perspective is a lot of the people who are speaking, many of them are, let's say, a decade or two younger than us. I will be 64 this week. And I just really think that for us elders to have, to be speaking at a time where multiple generations are speaking, it's to me, it's incumbent on us that if we think we have any wisdom to share from our years, that we do so in a dialogue like this. So I'm really glad to have you join me and to bring the Cosmic Emporium to fruition.
Yes, I think it's important at this time that we, for those of us in the alternative forum community, to expand a bit and stop depending on the talking heads and the established spokespeople, to let the little, the regular guys have a voice. And I'm even hoping to, if things go well, that we even bring on other people that are part of our community to talk with us.
Yeah.
That we can expand upon, because there's so much wisdom out there that needs to be expressed that cannot be done through text. These quips of anybody can sit down and type something and copy and paste things. Obviously, I'm a great example of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's important that we start taking in accord some of these other opinions and having dialogue and with the regular people, so to speak. And that's the way I see us moving forward. So with that, I'll bid you a goodbye, and I'll look forward to next time.
Okay, well, I'll say goodbye to our watchers, and just if you like, please give us a thumbs up. If you want to be following and catching all the Cosmic Emporium to come up, please subscribe right now to ModWiz 125. The forum that Gio mentioned is the One Truth Forum. If you type the One Truth Forum, you'll get the URL, which is Jan and Dean 81 or something. It's kind of an interesting URL for the One Truth Forum, but that's the one we belong to if you're at all interested. So I'll say thank you. God bless you to all, and be well until next time.